Hello, and everyone. Welcome back to the Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today is Hump Day.
Mike. What day is it, Mike?
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
It's Hump Day.
Hump Day!
That's right, folks. Today is Hump Day. This is the day in which we attempt to begin the weekend, sometimes with success, sometimes not. But as I always like to say, the fun is all in the trying. And as you can see, well, Mike is still enjoying his weekend. I don't know if he's taking a long weekend or if he's taking an early start to a long weekend from last weekend, or if he's just making an early start, having success starting this weekend. No, I'm just kidding, though. I can tell you Mike is working hard. He is, he's out working hard. That's all I can tell you. Unfortunately, that means that he wasn't able to be here for the program today. But you're here. I'm here. So we're going to have a good old time. If you are watching the program live, I cannot encourage you enough. Please take a moment and comment. We're on live. So if you're watching this at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, then you're watching us live. Go ahead and comment. I'm paying attention. I'm watching YouTube. I'm watching Facebook. I'm watching OpsLens. I'm watching all of those. So do me, or Rumble. Definitely check in Rumble. Go ahead and let us know what you think about or if you have any comments on the things that we're talking about today. If I find that they are entertaining enough, I'll go ahead and I'll share those comments with the other viewers. All right, so let's go ahead and get into today's program. But you know how we do it, right? We always got to pay those bills first. And so we're going to start once again with a quick shout out to our sponsors. And we're going to start with Hitman Industries. If you are looking to do a new build, a new home build, if you're looking to rebarrel your current rifle, check out Hitman Industries. If you've recently purchased an AR, chances are you already have one of their barrels. So check them out today. I know you got to love it. So check them out. You just go to hitmanindustries.net. If you are a first responder and you've never bought from them before, this is your first time buying from them, you're going to get a discount. So once again, check them out today. Rifle and pistol caliber barrels. Oh, and Glock barrels. Once again, Hitman Industries. Then you've got the California Republican Assembly working to help elect conservative Republicans at all levels of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Ronald Reagan once referred to CRA as the conscience of the Republican Party. Go to cragop.org and check out the candidates that they're supporting. Check out the issues that they're fighting on. If you want to be a part of California's future today, you need to join CRA. And then we've got Hog Holsters, the place you need to go to in order to get your concealed carry holsters, your tactical holsters, your inside the waistband, outside the waistband, whatever firearm you have. Trust me, they have the setup for you. Just go to hogholsters.com. Make sure you use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, just like count on The Rundown. And then finally, when it comes to tactical gear, there is no better place for you to go than uscombatgear.com. They're veteran owned and operated. They have a great selection. They have inexpensive prices, or reasonable prices, however you want to put it, and fast shipping. So check them out today, uscombatgear.com. All right, now is the time for us to get into today's comments, or today's programs. Let's go over here. All right, and we're going to start off with today's stories with a story dealing with immigration. There we go. All right, starting off with immigration today. So we've said, and it's been widely reported, how wide open our southern border is. And you've seen Mayorkas talk about the idea, we have vetting. He says we have vetting because he says the border is secure. That's at least that's his standard line. Well, come to find out, the border is not nearly as secure as we thought it was. Turns out that about 400 plus illegal immigrants have been smuggled in by an ISIS affiliate. And this was reported not only by the New York Post, but actually by, believe it or not, NBC News. Check it out.
Tonight, NBC News has learned more than 50 migrants with potential ties to an ISIS-affiliated smuggling network are at large in America. Many illegally crossed the border and were released into the U.S. by Border Patrol because there was no information suggesting terror ties at the time. Now their whereabouts are unknown as immigration agents look to arrest them, U.S. officials tell us, saying they're among a group of over 400 migrants DHS identified in the U.S. from Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Moldova, Kyrgyzstan, Georgia, and Russia as subjects of concern because they were brought to the U.S. by an ISIS-affiliated smuggling network, something the FBI director warned about earlier this year.
Some of the overseas facilitators of the smuggling network have ISIS ties that we're very concerned about.
ICE has located and arrested over 150 of the 400 migrants so far, with some already deported from the U.S., officials say, adding authorities are not panicking because their ties to ISIS are not certain, but they're prioritizing their arrest out of an abundance of caution.
The problem is the volume of people coming across the southern border, individuals from ISIS and other affiliated groups have recognized it as a weak point in our defense, and they're using this opportunity to try to sneak in.
NBC News was first to report on a similar arrest of an Uzbek man in Baltimore, whose country alerted the U.S. he was affiliated with ISIS. That man, like the others apprehended so far, was arrested on immigration charges, not terrorism-related charges. ISIS-K has claimed responsibility for deadly terror attacks in Russia and Iran in the past year. And recently, the DHS Inspector General sharply criticizing vetting at the U.S. southern border, saying DHS is at risk of admitting dangerous persons into the country or enabling asylum seekers who may pose significant threats to public safety and national security to continue to reside in the United States. Two senior law enforcement officials told NBC News they are not tracking a terror plot from this group of migrants, but their arrest on immigration charges come out of an abundance of caution. Lester?
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about break.
All right, so think about this now. Once again, these are individuals that they said that, well, you know, there was no information or there were no ties to any sort of a terrorist organization when they went through their interview process. Right. In other words, because someone who's planning on coming into the United States as a part of a terrorist ring or brought in by a terrorist group or part of a terrorist plot are going to tell you when they sit down in an interview with you. Because they couldn't possibly lie. I mean, lying couldn't possibly be part of their plan, right? They couldn't possibly be sitting there thinking, well, gee, you know what? Why don't I just tell them whatever, I need to tell them the truth. That's it. They're going to say, I need to just tell them the truth. Because if I tell them the truth, well, then all will be good. No. They know better. They know better. They know that the way for them to get into the United States is to lie, right? They know that they need to lie to get in. Now, so you've got 400 people who got into the country that we now know were part of this ring. And the way they must have, now, by the way, they're already released into the United States. They've arrested 150 of them, and 50 of them, they have absolutely no idea where they are. So let's see now, if they've arrested 150, there's 50 they have no idea where they are, so then they still have another 200 that they have to arrest, which means we don't know how many of those additional 150 that they still, or 200 that they still have to arrest, we don't know that they even know where they are. We have no idea. And yet the country is supposed to be safe. Yet the border is supposed to be secure. Yet they look at it when conservatives, when folks like us, point to the dangers that have been created by this situation. They look at us as if, well, they're just conspiracy theorists. They're being racist because they're accusing these people of potentially engaging in violent terrorist acts because they're people of color. No, because they are coming from terrorist countries, as reported by the folks over at the New York Post.
The number of migrants crossing the border from Tajikistan, an ISIS recruitment hotbed, has exploded under the Biden administration. There have been roughly 1,500 migrant crossings from Tajikistan under the Biden administration, and just the year before that. Over the previous 14 years, there were just 26 Tajiks to cross the border. Now, this information comes to us after we reported on the 8 individuals from Tajikistan that were nabbed within the country after crossing the border. They are said to be tied to ISIS and were arrested as part of a joint operation between the FBI and ICE. Those arrests took place in Los Angeles, Philadelphia, and New York. Now, the reason Tajikistan is of particular concern for terrorist threats is because ISIS and its affiliate ISIS Khorasan have been recruiting there and also have been recruiting Tajiks living outside of Tajikistan. Javed Ali, a former counterterrorism official who is now a professor at the University of Michigan, told the Post that it's possible that ISIS is using Tajiks to cross the border as a possible mechanism for, quote, seeding people into the United States. Now, Tajiks affiliated with ISIS-K were responsible for carrying out the mass Moscow terrorist attack that killed 145 individuals at a concert hall on March 22nd. Now, this all comes during warnings from the federal government up to FBI Director Chris Wray, who has named multiple threats that he believes puts us in a heightened environment for terrorist attacks. Now, Colin Clark, the director of research at the Soufan Group, told us that ISIS and ISIS-K are very keen on recruiting Tajiks living abroad and that many of them do. He said, quote, one of the things that they've actively and deliberately done is try to expand their recruits geographically. So not only Afghans and Pakistanis, but they want to bring in a big Central Asian component. Moreover, they want to reach out to the diaspora, so Central Asians living in Europe, living in North America, in an attempt to radicalize them because for ISIS-K, it's low-hanging fruit.
All right. So in other words, the point is that they recognize that these folks are coming. They are brought in by a terrorist ring, and they are coming from terrorist countries or potentially terrorist countries. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are terrorists, but it definitely, to say that they are not a risk would be incredibly inappropriate. To say that our southern border is secure, when, by the way, these are just the folks we know about, right? These 400 people that have been brought in, these are the people that we know about. Anyway, keep that in mind as you go forward and you listen to what some of these folks have to say about our southern border being secure. All right, next on the list, let's see. We have a 9 in 10 gun cases. In 9 in 10 current gun cases, judges are ignoring Bruin. Now, this has actually come from a study that's been done. It's being reported over at Bearing Arms, where they're talking about this new study that reveals that Bruin's impact on the federal judiciary. Now, this is a piece that was written by Cam Edwards, and in the piece, he writes, the good news, there's been a 300% increase in the number of federal lawsuits successfully challenging various gun laws in the 2 years since the Bruin decision came down. The bad news, nearly 9 in 10 cases, judges are still rejecting the arguments of 2A plaintiffs and upholding gun control laws in question. The numbers came from a new paper from 3 law professors who aren't exactly big fans of the Bruin decision. Rebecca Brown, Lee Epstein, and Mitu Galati also take issue with what they see as an increase in partisan decisions by Trump-appointed judges who the professors claim are more likely than their counterparts to dare to declare gun laws unconstitutional. By the numbers, federal courts handed down 865 gun rights decisions in 2023, up from 121 in 2021. It's because a lot of those cases were getting thrown out for no reason, by the way, just so you know. Now, in the Bruin era, 11% of cases have come down in favor of gun rights, up from just 3% before the Supreme Court decided the District of Columbia v. Heller in 2008. Republican appointees are slightly more likely to find in favor of gun rights. They now do so in 14% of decisions compared to 8% for Democrat appointees. What they found? Judges appointed by President Trump are much more likely to find in favor of gun rights. That's especially true if they're under the age of 55 and deciding cases that will be reported, that is, published in a regional or federal book of cases. Judges under 55 are considered to be, quote, auditioners. That is, they are looking to receive promotions. In reported cases, they find in the favor of gun rights a whopping 61% of the time. And, all right, so here's the interesting thing about this. So number one, what it does say is, the number of times they're ruling in our favor has gone up. But even still, I mean, we're talking 90% of the time in these cases, they're basically ignoring Bruin. They're going against us. Now, there's a couple of things to include in that, or to consider, I guess. Maybe I should have considered that when I did the headline, but oh well. One is, a lot of these times the cases are dealing with people who are criminals, people who committed a crime while in possession of a firearm, whether they committed it with the firearm or in possession of the firearm. So in a lot of cases, you may be dealing with a plaintiff that's not a very good plaintiff, right? Or in this case, if they're defending themselves in a case, they're a defendant that's not a very good defendant. If they're a plaintiff, these folks are usually do a much better job. The people filing the cases, like the Firearms Policy Coalition, the Second Amendment Coalition, the NRA, California Rifle and Pistol, all these folks, they usually do, Gun Owners of America, they usually do a better job of selecting the sorts of plaintiffs that are going to make these cases sing to you. Now, though they are fighting these cases, a lot of times when they're fighting these cases and the person is actually a defendant, they're usually not a very sympathetic defendant. They're oftentimes someone who is in the process of committing a crime with a gun. And so in many of those cases, they're probably deciding against them, not as much because of the law, which, by the way, is exactly what they should be deciding on. And much of it may have to do with the quality of the defendant, in particular in this case, that you're dealing with. In any case, once again, I can tell you that in many of these cases, and I can say this because I've dealt with a lot of these folks. I've seen a lot of these cases. I've seen discussions and conversations in a whole bunch of instances. They're not concerned. They don't care about. Let me clarify. They don't know a lot of times. I don't want to say they don't know the law, but there's a lot of stuff that in particular when it comes to the technology, that they're just not familiar with. They're not. And so I think one of the things that this does is this helps us to better understand exactly what's going on with some of these folks and in some of these decisions. But I'm excited. I'm excited in this is that we're still getting more cases decided in our favor, as well as we're seeing more cases being filed, and we're seeing more instances where we're actually winning. So that's all actually very, very good stuff, right? That's all stuff that we ought to be very, very happy about. It is definitely something worth noting. All right, on to our next story. Rachel Levine, who is the U.S. Secretary for Health, rejects age limits when it comes to transing the kids. And I take that term from Ben Shapiro, or from Armstrong and Getty, or some local folks here that are syndicated across the country. In any case, I've always tried to not be really kind of bombastic with those statements, but really it's starting to get crazy. And when I talk about, in particular, when we're talking about kids, now keep in mind, we're talking about having children take either some sort of a chemical hormone, some sort of a chemical, or have a surgery that has a lasting permanent effect on them. Now, these are minors. We're talking about children who we don't allow to get tattoos without their parents' permission. In California, you can't go to a tanning salon without even with, by the way, the support of your parents. You can't go to a tanning salon even if they let you, right? But that don't matter to some of these folks. So here you've got Rachel Levine, who's basically said, yeah, no, we're not for. They're basically Health Secretary Rachel Levine opposes age limits for transgender treatment. It says here, transgender advocate, right? She's an advocate, not a Secretary for Health, Rachel Levine, who is, by the way, is a trans woman or is transsexual. Levine pushed to remove age limits from the draft guidelines for medical treatment of people who say they are transgender. A document called Appendix A to a supplemental expert report of James Cantoner, that butchered. You know how I am with names. I'm sorry, y'all. Was released as a part of a lawsuit, Boe v. Marshall, according to Jesse Signal, a left-wing critic of transgender ideology. Cantor is described as being a Canadian sex researcher and critical of youth gender medicine, and frequent expert witness on behalf of those attempting to ban or restrict youth gender healthcare. Once again, now this is them talking. They are referring to it as youth gender healthcare. Anyway, it says here, Cantor writes in a document that Levin attempted to and did influence the substantive content of the Standards of Care Rules version 8 based on political goals rather than science. SOC 8 rules are guidelines that help medical professionals provide safe, gender-affirming care to people who say they are transgender. Specifically, Assistant Secretary, through a staff member, pressured WPATH, World Professional Association for Transgender Health, to remove recommended minimum ages for transition treatments from SOC 8, Cantor writes. In the document, Cantor shows internal communications from WPATH leadership to rush the development and issuance of a version of 8 of the SOC rules in order to assist with administering political ideology. The document notes that the internal communication with WPATH, that's what I call it, WPATH, members show the SOC 8 development process was influenced by pressure from high-level government appointees such as Levin in order to remove age limits on transgender medical procedures for transitioning. Now, folks, here's the thing, and I think that one, we know that the gender ideology, a lot of the information, a lot of the data, a lot of the things that they're telling you, a lot of the quote unquote the experts are telling you, we know isn't true. We know that it doesn't reduce suicide ideation. We know that many of the chemicals, in particular, if you give them to children, we know that they come with side effects. The surgeries, we know that some of them have issues. In particular, the castration, which is also a vaginoplasty, where they castrate the male and then they attempt to create a vagina. We know that is fraught with many problems. But then we also know, in particular, when it comes to youth, when you start giving children cross-sex hormones, we know that it can make them sterile. It can promote osteoporosis. And we also, once again, know from the fact that 7 different countries have now banned this process for children, except in terms of for studies, for clinical purposes. In other words, if they want to study it in order to find out more about it, that's a different story. But at least seven European countries, folks like the Netherlands and Great Britain, they're looking at this and they're saying, yeah, no, we need to investigate this a little bit more for two reasons they have decided. One is because there's no data or information that shows that it improves outcomes. None. The number one reason why they say that this is quote unquote life-saving is because those who are transgender have a 80% higher incidence of suicidal ideation, meaning desire to commit suicide. So you have people saying, look, if you don't let them transition, they're going to kill themselves. So that's what they consider to be life-saving, right? That's why they consider it to be life-saving. So they're showing right now that the number of incidents or the percentage of suicides does not go down, has not reduced at all. But they also noted that there's no information that says that these things that they're doing are safe. Not only are there not studies that showing what they're doing are safe, but they're starting to see evidence that it is actually unsafe, in particular for minors. But we have folks from the Biden administration going out of their way to make sure that the policies of this administration of the United States push this thing through. Not based on medicine, but based on politics. And that's what's going on here, folks. Now, all I can say is this. If you are using politics to put our kids at risk, that is sacrificing our children. Now, if you are a believer, this is what I call nothing. You don't even have to be a believer. This is nothing more than child sacrifice at the ideology, at the altar of transgender ideology. That's all it is. You are literally sacrificing our children. You're starting by brainwashing them with things like drag queen story hour, right? Letting them promoting the idea of transgenderism to kids who don't know what gender is, they don't know what sex is, and they aren't really thinking about it until you start putting the thoughts in their heads. Then you start putting the books in their schools that include pornographic images and pornographic stories of children engaged in gay sex. I know y'all don't want to hear that that's happening. Go look at the book Genderqueer. It's there. Go look at the book Flamer. It's there. Go look at the book All Boys Aren't Blue. It's there. These are the most challenged books that they say Republicans are trying to ban. No one's trying to ban them. They just want to make sure that they're not in our public school, elementary, and middle school libraries. Or even they shouldn't be in the high school libraries with pornographic material in them. But they're sacrificing our children on the altar of, once again, of this ideology. And I got to tell you, it is highly offensive. You should be highly offended. You should know exactly what your school board, what the folks in your community are doing. You should know what the folks in your state legislature are doing. We now have, in California, I'll give you an example. They've made it so that if you try to remove these books, if you try to defend your child, they'll go as far as they want to go as far as trying to remove your child from you, to take your child from you. They want to consider it child abuse if you don't buy into the I guess my little boy is actually a girl. They want to treat you as if you are an abuser. School districts are fined if they remove some of this material from their libraries. Anyway. Yes, they are definitely interested in the idea of sacrificing your children at the altar of their political correctness. And by the way, not everybody who's promoting this stuff or is voting for these things believes in transgenderism. They're just all part of the liberal cabal. They're all part of the new neo-Marxist cultural Marxism, and their thing may be the environment. Their thing may be race. Their thing may be LGBTQ. It may be something else. But because they're part of the intersectional coalition, they're down with this too. This is part of their thing as well. All right, moving on to our next story. CNN debate hosts Anti-Trump bias exposed. Now, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, so I don't need to go into a whole lot of detail, except I did want to share with you some of the specific examples that are actually being reported over at Breitbart. That's right. Breitbart actually went and they put together a piece, and they put together a list of 15 different instances where these folks have, each one of them, Dana Bash and Jake Tapper, have actually promoted and talked about and basically been anti-Trump in their comments or commentary. And I just wanted to read through some of these with you. All right, these are 15 from Jake Tapper. He suggested that Trump was a nightmare for, quote, tens of millions of our fellow Americans. Their long national nightmare is over. That's what he said. Claimed Trump, quote, continues to lie to the American people about coronavirus testing. He retweeted a post that called Trump 100% insane. Shamed Trump upon being hospitalized for coronavirus, described Trump's presidency as a disaster, ran a segment about the alleged shape of Trump's penis. Wow. Okay. Questioned the 2016 election by perpetuating the Russia collusion hoax, suggested Trump tried to kill democracy, ordered CNN's control room to not cover Trump live, claimed Trump was a, quote, rather angry defendant, saying there's no case here, refused to cover Trump live due to, quote, potentially dangerous content. I'd love to know what he's talking about. Suggested Trump was leading the nation down the drain, accused Trump of siding with Russia during Russia collusion hoax, said Trump sided with the enemy amid Democrat claims of a stolen 2016 election, ordered Trump to stop whining after winning the 2016 election. Now, all of these, by the way, all include hyperlinks, so all of these have been verified. They have all occurred. This next list, these are the ones from Dana Bash. It says here, accused Trump of race baiting, suggested Trump is sexist, claimed Trump made anti-Semitic remarks, alleged former President Mike Pence's life was threatened by January 6 rioters provoked by Trump, said Trump's coronavirus briefing was propaganda after he contradicted his CDC director, accused Trump of being anti-science, alleged Trump politicized the pandemic for political benefit, said it was unfortunate for America that the Supreme Court decided to keep Trump on the ballot, claimed Biden found his voice after he attacked Trump's remarks on George Floyd's death, pushed the Russia collusion hoax, suggested Trump was unpresidential during his tenure. Yeah, okay, I can see that. Described Trump's firing of James Comey as like a scene from The Godfather, accused Trump of outright lies, said Trump appeared to use racist language against Senator Mitch McConnell's wife, and suggested Trump should say sorry for his alleged role on January 6th. Now, folks, I got to tell you, now, whether or not you believe that those things that I just noted were true, or whether or not you believed that, whether you believe they're true or not, right? Let me just be real. These are not the sort of things that someone who's going to be hosting or moderating a debate, meaning they're supposed to be neutral. That's not the sort of thing that those individuals should be saying or doing in the midst of the debate. They should not have the ability to moderate debates. Just saying. Not saying, just saying. I'm sorry. I'm trying to post this here because I want you all to be able to go, and I want y'all to be able to look it up for yourself. So I just sent it out to everybody, or at least it's in the comments section on all of these, or the chat sections. But I just want people to know and understand that these folks are not non-biased. So when they try to tell you that they're unbiased, they're lying. We know they're lying. Which, by the way, is nothing new. We know they lie. It is kind of a given. It's kind of their thing, right? We know that for them, the idea of doing something that is non-biased and reporting just the news is not something that they're capable of because it is not in their DNA. They just don't believe in it. Or they believe that what they're saying is unbiased. Somehow they try to report it as unbiased, but the reality is it's not unbiased. It really isn't. It favors one side, but they say it's objective. Even though it's biased, it's objective because they're saying they're just reporting the facts. And you and I know that's not true. Anyway, it's now time for our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown. All caps, no spaces. Get your Hog Holster today. All right, all of our parting shots today are brought to you by how do I keep literally I use them almost every time. And I forget them every single time. The Babylon Bee. That's right. The folks over at the Babylon Bee who do a good job. Do a phenomenal job of bringing humor to some of these very, very challenging concepts that we are dealing with these days. You might have heard that one of the squad members, Jamal Bowman, actually lost his primary. Didn't just lose his primary, got handled pretty well. And the reporting in the election was that, according to the Babylon Bee, it says breaking: Hamas loses seat to Democrats. That's right. Jamal Bowman was definitely he was definitely a Hamas apologist. He was a rape denier, and let's just say an overall bad guy. I mean, this was a guy who it was not a very smart guy either. This was a guy who thought that fire alarms actually would help you open doors, right? That's why his fellow members of the squad gave him a 21 firearms salute for their fallen comrade, Jamal Bowman. Ha ha, hee hee, ha ha. Now, this next one, you might have heard that Julian Assange has been released from, they reached a plea bargain to where he pled guilty to espionage, I believe, and he got 5 years, and it was 5 years time, and he got credit for time served, even though he didn't serve any time in a U.S. jail. Anyway, but being that he is a whistleblower, they decided that, they'll give him a free ride home. An Assange plea deal includes a free flight home on a Boeing airplane. Yeah, if you've been following the news, you get the joke. If you haven't been following the news, I'm sorry, I can't explain it to you. And then finally, we all know that many in Hollywood and the entertainment industry side with the left. And one of those big ones has to be Miss Taylor Swift. Well, Taylor Swift, she has decided to make her voice known. Once again, this is according to the Babylon Bee, so we know that it is parody. Powerful Taylor Swift writes, F the patriarchy in the sky with the private jet. Wow. Okay. Well, there you go. Does anyone see any contradiction here? No? No one sees a contradiction? Nobody? Bueller? Okay. No one sees it. Anyway. All right, folks, so that's going to be it for today's show. But before we go, please take a moment and visit Hitman Industries. You'll find them at hitmanindustry.net. Rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you today. Then you've got the California Republican Assembly. If you want to be a part of California's future today, join CRA. And then you've got Hog Holsters. You can find them at hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces, one word, and get a discount on your Hog Holster today. And then finally, U.S. Combat Gear, where you can find all things tactical but the gun. And that will do it for today's program. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. We will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow being, Throat Punch Thursday. Hopefully Mike will be with us. If not, I'm not worried because I know you'll be here. Anyway, y'all take care. Have fun. We'll see you tomorrow.